Sorry, I'm looking for my dog. I think he's not in my room. I don't think he wants to join me. Hi, everybody. I haven't watched Hobie's live, but I saw him going online. I was just in the middle of something, so I couldn't. What did he talk about? Hi, everybody. Hello. Okay. Robin, Hanako Grace, Nadira, Ro- um, Christina Mooney. Oh, my dog is here. I thought he wasn't here. Come here. Why were you I thought you weren't in the room. Say hi. You say hi to everybody. Say hi. Okay. All right. Okay, okay. You comfortable? Tabak? Hanako Grace. Okay. I haven't watched his live. What did he talk about? Let me say hi. Nadira, Amy, Hanako Grace, Juan, um, Lisa, Nadira, Genesis, Amy, Ruth Fisher. I'm gonna give you an update. It's not approved yet. That's the update, but I have more details. Um, for the Chile, I'm talking about the Chile in response to the question of one. Z Arashi, Sarah, Shelling, Ruth, Maritz, Seda, OSP, Jax, Shelling, Lindsay, Robin Carr, Oriah, Monine. Monine, I sent you a message. Did you respond? Emily, Jax, Bangi Luna. Bang Luna, hello. Oh, you're on your phone. Carol Faye, Claire, Warren, Silver Star, Lady Pink, PZ48128, BTS Eden, Seda, Dodger Girl is on Twitch, Leah Warburton, Susan McKee, Orchid MSC. You missed it. J Hope was so cute, Fairly. I know. I saw like a screenshot. I haven't watched it. I'm still trying to catch up on life. Hobie, Spent almost an hour responding to army questions and comments. I hope it was good questions. Hello, they said you're a cutie, Debak. I felt like I was watching my FaceTime me on my bathroom. That is the best. Robin, Jackie Who, Portia Lyle, Rain Store. I think it was a gift for armies, yeah. I think so. Jax, Z Arashi, Lisa Parker, Robin Bryce, Jazzy, Christy, Lorena is on Twitch. Susan McKee, he's always so cute. Yeah, he is very cute. Aspen, Michelle Santiago, Lindsay, Jedidar, Finding April. Finding April, I got your Twitter message after like 2 months or 3 months. Was it Twitter message or something? Yeah, I think so. It was a Twitter message, a DM. Elizar, Tickle, Lady Atsuko Tanji, Aloha, Arlene, Sinri Lee S95, Rain Store, Jackie Who, Seven Purple Pearls, Dodger Girl is on Twitch as well. Ruth, I don't know how to read your name. Donna, but hi to you, the one that's waving, which I posted on on my screen. Finding April, Atsuko, okay, Mina. I think I've read everybody. I'm just repeating. One, definitely YouTube, the way he started that live. Jolie A. Okay, Enigma Prize, Denise. Hello, everybody. Happy Army Day. Happy birthday to everyone. This is the day when we were formally given a name. When Big Hit formally gave us a name. So hello to everybody. I think the last performance was kind of like they wanted to give extra effort because they know they're not going to be performing on Army Day. So it was special. But happy birthday to everybody. I think Army is the first fandom to have a logo. I think I think we're the first fandom to have a logo. Definitely not the first fandom to have a name, but the first fandom to have a logo. So that rebrand when they started when they rebranded from the um vest into that door and reverse door kind of thing, that was monumental because no, I don't believe there has been. I've been a fan since of K-pop since 20, I say two, uh, so definitely maybe close to maybe 20 years. Maybe 20 years. Yeah. So Gen 2 or Gen 1 or towards the end of Gen 1. I don't remember having seen anybody give their fandom a name. It was definitely a first, definitely a shock to a lot of people. Um so yeah, so that was a monumental thing. And I think that's also why I I've mentioned this to, so some of you actually send me DMs, and as you know, I try my best to respond to as many as I can. DMs on Patreon, especially, that's the priority. When you send me a DM on Patreon, I'm most likely to respond to that. But yeah, so I've mentioned this to everybody that to a certain degree, I've kind of I've watched this kind of hate be thrown into, well, not in this scale, but the intensity of hate. I've seen this on most of the most popular groups. And before Hype came into being, even before Big Hit actually, it was actually SM since they were the biggest. And almost every group that they launched was an absolute success. And they had the biggest boy band. I know that a lot of people think it is Big Bang. It wasn't. It was actually TVXQ. And if the three members did not sue SM, I think they would have broken more records and broken more grounds because they are those five members of TVXQ. They're all good. Not a single one is not good. They're all good. Very, very good. They did not write their music, but the way that they would perform, they're super good. So I think if it wasn't for the lawsuit, they would have actually broken more grounds internationally. So since they were the biggest, SM was the biggest at that time, and every group that they launched would always be a success. I've seen they were the targets. Now they are the ones targeting. But at that time, in their heyday, they were the targets. So I saw how K-pop fandoms would actually operate to try and destroy everybody that they would launch, and just much like how Islet and Les Seraphim are all getting hated simply because they belong to the same conglomerate as BTS. That's the same thing for other groups in SM. So this, to a certain degree, I'm not at all shocked, but the shock is in the scale because BTS has become global, and but the first true global group from Korea. Then the hate is magnified, but the intensity is kind of the same. So I've mentioned that to a lot of people, and they were like, I've mentioned that to some of you who have actually DM'd me, and when the conversation goes that way, they were like, really? Like, but SM is not that big. They've never made headway in the US. Yes, that's true. But it's not, it's just that the intensity is the same. The scale is, of course, different. So it is natural for BTS and for Hybe and all the groups under Hybe to be this hated because they have gone global. Many of the groups that they have launched uh, have actually become like they have sincere, honest headway in the US, not media play. So it's natural for the scale to be this much when it comes to hate. What was the first song that I listened to? BTS. Okay, this I have a question here. What was the first song I listened to of BTS? No, and um so I've been a fan. So No More Dream actually was the first before. Yeah, it was No More Dream. And then at that time I already liked them, but I was still a fan of other K-pop groups. I was a fan of TVXQ, um a lot. Like I was into a lot of groups. So at that time BTS was like, "Oh, they're really good." Um so I saw them debut. I was still in the Philippines, I think, at that time. And then a couple of months after, I moved to the US. So, yeah, their first single was the first song that I heard of them. But the first, like, song that actually got me into them, like a real fan, like an army. Because at that time, I would consider myself, like, I think I would consider myself a fan from day one. But I was standing a lot of groups, not just them. I still like a lot of groups. But I don't religiously follow them the way I would BTS. So when like my focus shifted fully to BTS, I think it was when um Dope. No, not Dope. We Are Bulletproof. I think that's when I shifted to them. Yeah. I listen to SJ. I really love I don't know if you guys have actually watched Sorry Sorry. I think that's one of the best music videos ever made. It was one shot. We call it one shot in professional filming. But yeah, so what was the first song that you heard from K-pop that you liked? What was the first song? Let type in the description box. What was the first song that you liked, and what was the first group that you liked? If it is BTS, then it's BTS. But before that, what was the first song from a K-pop group that you liked and first group that you liked? Type it in the description box. But yeah, it's been quite a journey. Forever Young. I listen to SJ a lot. Hog by TVXQ. TVXQ. Forever Young. So you've immediately gone to Mic Drop. SNSD songs. Yeah. Yes. Mic Drop, BTS, Run BTS. Okay. That's fairly new. Fiction by Highlight. Now Highlight. Oriya. Thank you. Happy birthday, Army. Oriya gave us a gift. Or this is going to be for Dabak. 2017 AMA Idol Microcosmos Butterfly Fantastic Baby by Big Bang. That's pretty good. Sorry by Super Junior. Never liked any of their other songs. First group I fell in love with was the 21. 21. I think Sorry from SJ. My cousin was a big fan. Haru Haru by Big Bang. BTS DNA. My first BTS song was On Fire by BTS. So Taiji Classroom. Oh, you're an oldie. Um, hi, Adjust Me. Hello. Mic Drop was my first song. First group, 2 p.m. Coffee. Danger by BTS. Spring Day, BTS Not Today. Newborn Army. Join the week before Netflix concert, BTS Dynamite. Hey! Welcome to the club. Welcome to the community. Arlie, Save Me. Hi, Juveline. Idol, don't. SJ, sorry. Thank you for supporting Fairy Lane. Lisa Parker, yeah. Thank you, Oriya. And Flying introduced me to BTS and Panman. Fiction was my ringtone until BTS. I love Fiction. I love Fiction. Um, I love their leader. SNSD. I love SNSD. Spring Day, BTS 2017 Army, Forever Young, BTS. I heard Dynamite commercial. Then I started looking at K drama, which turned me to BTS. BTS on. Thank you so much. Oh, okay. So a lot of you, yeah. I mean, if you want, like, Fiction is really good. Um, Beast was the original name of the group, and then when they left the agency, so one member left, and then they left the agency. They changed their name to Highlight because the agency wouldn't give them the name, but they're pretty good. I really love the leader of that group. Um, And then, yeah, TVXQ, I really love TVXQ. I don't know if I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this to you. I've actually met Big Bang in person because I wrote a movie for Dara Park. And I think one time she went to the Philippines, called us up so that we can meet with them. And she was actually with Big Bang. So I've actually met with them. I've met them, sorry. I've met them once. I'm sure they don't remember with the amount of people that they've met. I do like TOP. I like the way that he raps. I like the way, just his I think he's one of the few artists, like rapper in South Korea, who has real appreciation and understanding of hip hop, or maybe not even hip hop, but like rap in general. He's not so, like, yeah, there's a little bit of, you can hear like his street influence in him. I've always loved Taeyang, but the group itself, I'm like, but uh, individual members, yeah. Um, Aside from that, I like most groups, unlike other K-pop fans whose like default is to hate groups. My default is actually to like groups, and then from there, I just kind of go down. Um, the like From there, I kind of just, I guess, focus on who I actually like and I follow them. But because I run an online magazine and then this channel, I try to get to know as many groups as I could. Um, in fact, yesterday the other day, like the allotted time that I have to study, like just mainstream music and culture in general, I decided to dive into Meow. So I got to them. I mean, I've always liked them, but I've gotten to know them a little bit more. BTS was my first thus far and last thus far, DNA, then Magic Shop. I wasn't into Big Bang and still not. I like TOP's voice though. I heard Boa, an anime ending. Okay. So we have three major topics. I think I can cover three topics. One would be the BTS Chile situation, but this is going to get into like my observation on just the beat Nadira. Thank you. Happy birthday, Army. Thank you, Nadira. So as I discuss the Chile situation, we're going to get into some of my observations on what this entire situation revealed, and also the situation in Chile in comparison to what's happening in other countries, like like or in other states in the US, like Las Vegas, other countries that are dying to actually get them over. And a little bit on the situation and why they're not covering any African countries, just based on my experience, especially during the time when we were still doing events for some of the companies that we managed in an advertising agency. And then we're going to be talking about Bang Shiyuk. I'm going to give you an update. So I'm sure that you've seen or read some of the articles written about it, about the statement of the prosecutor. I'm going to discuss that. And then we're going to discuss even further um, some of the more information I got based on what they said. Because they would say like certain things, but they would also not answer a lot of things based off what they said. Okay. And then we're going to be talking about the research. So I don't know if you've read the Billboard research. They did the research for about K-pop fandoms in the US. And then we're going to compare that and analyze that from based on the interview. This it was actually a lecture that Bang Shiyuk did back in 2018. So it's almost it's 8 years ago. He did a lecture and he discussed a lot of things that's going to provide us some very good insights on what's happening in the international. We're going to be surprised, like based on that, the things that he's saying are the things that Universal Music and Sony Music are actually doing. Okay, let's start with Chile. Do you want to do that? I love TVX. I still love them. I still love them. And my bias is actually, is my bias. But I love them. Like I hope someday, down the road, the five of them could be on stage together and just perform. It would be a blast for everybody. Because my God, that band was actually so big. If they did not sue SM, I'm sure they would have. Oh my! I think they would have been gigantic. But I love the direction that is actually taking right now. I'm looking forward to his concert. I hope there is a US date. I'm definitely going to be watching because he said the concert is different. He said it's going to be like a narrative kind of concert, which I believe because has that kind of creative mind. That wouldn't happen. The reunion, oh my god, I hope it does. I would really watch. Jejong is handsome. It's like he's like, oh yeah, he's handsome. I guess more than the five of them coming together, it's that one member that would be a problem because of all the troubles he has gotten himself into. Okay, they betrayed each other. They did. Yeah, they did. Okay. All right. So let's talk about this. As you know, there is an article that was published by The Clinic. It's an online magazine in Spain. And they revealed a lot of things. And I'm going to supplement it with some research and also some other articles that they that other newspapers actually published about the situation. So, but before that, let's get to know the clinic a little bit more because they've written a lot of things. So I'm sure a lot of you are curious whether or not they're actually reliable. So they actually began in 1998, and it was a satirical political magazine during the aftermath of, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, so let me know if I'm correct. Augusto Pinochet. Am I correct? Or is it Pinochet? I don't know. His arrest in London. Let me know if that was actually correct, or if I'm wrong, let me know the pronunciation. So they started as a satirical comedy, satirical comedy, a satirical political magazine, and it mixed, of course, it's satire. So they combined humor, political satire, and the investigative reporting, interviews, and opinion. Now, over the years, they have actually evolved into a broader, the second one, Pinochet or Pinochet. One is Pinochet or two Pinochet. Which one's correct? Okay, so over the years, it evolved into a broader digital news publication, which but they've retained their sort of satirical style. So at times they would still the second Pinochet. Okay, Pinochet. So they would sometimes still do satirical type of satire kind of articles, but they have become a bit more like serious when it comes to investigations and to interviews. Although they have, according to my research, they have leaned left. Although they have, in the beginning when they started transitioning to become a uh, no T, Pinochet, no T. Susan said no T. Pinochet, is that correct? Okay. Is it Pinochet? That's one, or Pinochet two? Let me know. One Pinochet. Sorry, Pinochet or Pinochet. Pinochet is one. Pinochet is two. Okay. You're all giving me different kind of pronunciations. Okay. Over the years, it evolved into broader digital news publication, but they have retained their satirical sort of um uh like satirical type of delivery in some of their articles. So they would still do it. They're closer to, so they do like breaking news, investigative reporting, political analysis, interviews, pieces, and some satire still. So, but a little less, but they still do it. So I would say they're kind of closer to Rolling Stone for political investigation, and then Mother Jones and the New Republic. So they are definitely credible as a news source. It's just that you can't take whatever it is that they say by itself. Like they're not the be all and end all of political commentary. I guess no one is. But there are certain publications that would, you would kind of base your decision on 90% of the time. They're not that. You have to balance whatever it is that they are saying with other publications. And so I've also researched on other things like El País. Okay. So that's also, I believe this is like the most credible in Latin America, maybe, or Spain for that matter. So I've also used them as a resource just to double check some of the information that the clinic published. Okay. Okay. So Pinochet, Lee S95 said that's how it is pronounced. Some saying Shay. Okay. All right. I'll try to listen to him pronounce his name. How's that? But because you're all giving me. Okay. So here's an article that was published by El País. Okay. Now this is what they've written. All right. March 27 was when Minister Duco, the woman who has been front and center of this entire controversy, she held a lobbying meeting with Carlos Ganizo. So I've checked what lobbying meeting is. I guess that's the exploratory meeting. That would be the equivalent in the US. So if we say we're going to talk, we're going to sit down and not actually exploratory, but more like negotiation. So this was the negotiation meeting with Carlos Genizo, which is the legal representative of DG Medios, which is the organizer of the concert. Okay. And they said that around 15 people attended the meeting, during which the two sides negotiated a preliminary agreement to make the National Stadium available for BTS concert. Now, a lot of people said that, and I'm reading this online in many other newspapers, in Europe, that that kind of the number of people in that meeting is a little odd. They're like 15 people. What were you discussing? World War III? So they were all shocked about this. Now, okay, so although the national stadium is managed by the IND, it was actually Duco who led the negotiation. And they said that that was actually the first sign that something was amiss, because it IND was supposed to lead that discussion, not Duco, but she was the one leading it. Now, Duco allegedly told Geniso that he had to make a choice. You either host the concert on October 14, 16, and 17, or Iron Maiden concerts on October 31 and November 1. Make a choice, is what she said. All right. Now, Geniso, this is the representative of the organizer, responded that DG Medios, which is the organizer, was willing to negotiate and pay more. Okay, so that statement is loaded. Because if they're saying, if DG Medios is saying that we're willing to negotiate and pay more, it is not about the grass, right? Because if it is about the grass, then you're just going to have to say, No." Because she's saying that it's going to take 3 months for the grass to recover, um, for the damage that it's going to have because of the 360 setup, stage setup. So Ganisa responded, said, "We're going to be negotiating and we're willing to pay more." And so, according to sources present during the discussion, financial terms were discussed, including CPL, I guess this is their currency, 1 billion for the stadium rental, which would be paid to Chile's treasury, and 200 million to repair an elevator at the Paralympic residence. Okay. So, can someone research how much one CPL 1 billion is to US dollars? But this is over and above the payment that they already have on the table. Okay. So I have absolutely no idea why they need to repair the elevator at the Paralympic residence in connection to the concert. But it was pretty clear in the article that the CPL 1 billion is actually over and above the current whatever price that they are offering for the concert. Okay, so this is according to the clinic, the publication, and also supported by other newspapers. These commitments were discussed alongside mitigation measures designed to protect the stadium field. Okay, so there have been, I think, at least two staff members in the concert of BTS who have shown the setup, and the setup clearly showed that they have a um that they actually put a board to protect the grass. It is built in. You don't have to ask for it because it's almost 107,000 according to Dodger Girl, US dollars. So CPL 1 billion is almost 107,000 US dollars. So you can see, based on those videos that the people, staff members of the concert published, that the the board that they are talking about is actually, oh, so Letitia said it's 1 million US dollars according to Letitia. Um okay, so 1 mil Denise said 1,000,007. So um so they, if you watch, so they were published on TikTok. I think there were two, at least two staff members who've already shown it, and you can clearly see that under that, the 360-degree stage, they actually are protecting there's a board where the stage is actually built on. So the claim that these commitments were already discussed alongside mitigation measures designed to protect the stadium field is actually consistent with what the staff members are already showing. Okay. Now, after they posted, after all of this discussion about the grass being destroyed, whatever, there are several companies who came forward and they do the board themselves, and they said that they actually supply the board, and they said that one company specifically said if the BTS setup weighs 800 tons, that's what they said, it weighs 800 tons, our setup can actually carry up to 900 tons. Get in touch with us and everything is going to be good. Like we will be able to meet whatever requirement the government is actually um, putting forward. So we know that there are measures like that. Okay. And then, so according to people present, the meeting actually ended with Duco and Ganiso shaking hands as if they had reached an agreement. So it's kind of like, all right, we will deliver what it is that you want, and you're going to give us both the concert and both concerts, Iron Maiden and BTS. Now, Duco publicly said that the responsibility rested entirely on the concert promoter and that no formal request had ever been submitted, despite the existence of that lobbying or that meeting where they actually negotiated the terms and they've agreed on the amount that the organizer was supposed to pay. So everyone was shocked when she suddenly said it is hard to cancel something that was never confirmed because they obviously confirmed the event. Okay. I have absolutely no feeling on my legs. Okay. You stay there for 4 minutes. Sorry. But I like not no blood is flowing on my legs. Okay. So Um, the problem is that the National Sports Institute, or the IND, um, was that it actually took place. The meeting took place without the institute's acting director, Lorena Castillo, and who was actually attending the 2026 Bolivarian Beach Games in Iquique. So Duco, who's not the head of the stadium itself, she's not in charge of the stadium, is the one who negotiated and led the meeting when she's not in charge of the IND. They said that that's a problem. Why was she there? Why was she negotiating? Where was Lorena Castillo? She's the one who's supposed to be here because she's supposed to know more about this woman. So again, question, why was it her? Okay. So IND, not the sports minister, is the agency responsible for managing the national stadium. According to the report, no agreement or negotiation regarding the venue should have finalized without the IND's participation. This may be where this may be the thing that Duco was referring to when she said the agreement was not finalized. Well, because the meeting was held without the head of the organization that is supposed to be looking after the national stadium. It was her. So the question is, well, why were you the one leading the meeting? Why did you call the meeting? Why did you lead the meeting? And why did you lead the negotiation when you're not even supposed to be there? Okay, I have to put him down. I have absolutely no feeling on my legs. Okay. You're so heavy, Demba. How'd you become so fat? Say bye to everybody. How'd you become so fat? Hmm? Say bye bye. Say bye bye. Bye bye. Weight shaming. Am I weight shaming you? The only way I can stop weight shaming you is if you start losing weight because you're so fat. You keep on eating. How many treats do you eat in a day? Okay, do you want to go out? You want to go out? Okay, I'll let you out. Sorry, I was slow because I couldn't feel my legs. All right, so yep, he's gone. Okay, so I guess there is consistency in what she was saying when she said that there is no final agreement because she wasn't supposed to be the one who's doing this agreement. She wasn't even supposed to be negotiating, and yet she was the one who took the lead. Okay, so next is that Duco's chief of staff, Rodrigo Heikel, is that correct? Made a mistake by accepting the meeting without including the IND leadership. But she never said anything about that. So all these questions about this, so obviously there is like a perfect storm with all the wrong elements coming together for this event. But there's still a big question as to why, if all of these things happen, the person who's not supposed to negotiate negotiated and led the meeting, and the person who's supposed to be there wasn't there. Why was the ticket allowed to? Why did they allow the selling of the tickets? It's not like Ticketmaster can just activate it. That's not how it works. As Ticketmaster can just activate, or whoever the ticketing is. I'm assuming it is Ticketmaster, right? They can't just activate. They cannot just start selling tickets without any kind of signed agreement with the venue. So obviously, Ticketmaster does not own the venue, so they're just negotiating, or whoever the ticket seller is. They won't be able to allow. You can't tap into their system without agreements, without any kind of permits or negotiation or signed contracts. Okay, so next, Silvio Garcia, who's known as the shaman. There is a curse. There's a curse going around with shamans. I'm kidding. When I read this, I like, oh my God, not again, shaman. So the other question is, they said they're asking, the clinic is saying, why was he there? Why were there so many people in the concert? What was his involved? Why was his involvement in there? The presence of Duco leading the meeting and leading the negotiation is questionable in itself. And then you have a shaman. So it's like, what's happening? So now the IND repeatedly warned. So the IND themselves repeatedly warned Duco's team, specifically Heikel, that they need to address the growing BTS stadium issue instead of continuing to delay it. So even before it blew up, even before people learned about the entire conflict, IND was already telling Duco, do something about this. Do something about this before it leaks out to the media. So is he her sham? It I don't know who shaman is it. And why was he called the shaman? I don't even know that. By the way, I don't know the cultural significance of that, or if there's any cultural meaning to that, or if it's just a nickname that was given to him. I have no idea. So all of this unfolded while Minister Duco was already facing political pressure. According to Cadem's Plaza Publica poll, that was released June 28th, she had the lowest approval rating in President Gabriel Boric's cabinet with just 32%. Um, so even before the concert started, which I thought was like, it's a monumental failure. This is beyond comprehension. If you have that low of approval, why would you mess with armies unless she's trying to appeal to a different market, the opposite market? Maybe she's trying to appeal, I don't know, like maybe she's trying to appeal to the sports fans, because sports fans in I'm this are speculation, by the way. I have no basis for this. I was just thinking, like, if you're already having problems with approval, because the June 28th approval rating publication was just the latest month. But prior to that, she was already experiencing tanking approval from the public. And so I was thinking, either she's not, probably she doesn't care about the approval rating, or maybe she's trying to appeal to the opposite market. But who is that opposite market? Would be the sports fans, because they hate pop music. I don't know. These are all speculation, by the way. Anyway, so I thought, if you're already having a low approval rating, and you go against the biggest fandom in the world, I think that's just a monumental failure. Why would you even do that? Okay, next. Um, maybe Army's just she thought that Army's is just a bunch of maybe. Now there are different stadiums that already offered to host the event, and one is called the Colos Estadio Monumental. The problem is that they only had 47,000 capacity, way below the capacity of uh, the national stadium. And they already sold the tickets. So they need a stadium. That's the whole point, you know. And then the other thing is, and I've mentioned this in the past, that of course there are people who actually already booked their hotels and their Airbnbs within the venue, so you definitely want that to do that to do you want the event to be done in that area. Um I saw her interview. She's a bureaucrat through and through. She doesn't care about anything but following the rules and DJ Medios. But I don't think the grass is the rule. Okay, so the whatever is going to happen with the grass, I don't think that's the issue though. Okay. So the challenge is that none of the venues appear capable of accommodating nearly 200,000 fans expected across three concerts. So we know that if the capacity is about 47,000, that's probably going to accommodate around 45,000 because they have four front of houses. That's how BTS operates. And then because of the structure, they kind of have to block certain portions of the venue, and so that would mean that they're not really going to maximize the entire venue. So they're probably going to land at around 45,000. And if you are trying to host 200,000 people, where are you going to throw away the other 40,000, right? So that's still a problem, is the point, unless they do another date, but that's going to mess up their schedules. Okay, so before I go through my observations, do you have questions? Um, it might come down to just pure incompetence. That's also one, and that's not impossible. That is just pure incompetence. But then why would she go in front of the media and talk about this instead of her trying to do something about this? I definitely think it's actually one of my observations that people are, especially bureaucrats, politicians, they're actually underestimating the power of the number, the size, the volume of armies. Um, but also, I feel like they're just not appreciating. Okay, we'll get to that. Um, it was an attempted shakedown, in my opinion. She's punishing. The rules are that DJ Medios didn't wait for her approval, so she's punishing them. The grass was never an issue. Okay. So she wanted to be the one to approve it, but she's not in charge of the the venue. Here are my two pesos. She thought the deal was going to be semi-secret. Then she comes to save the day. She didn't count on armies. I think all the buildings need a cleaning after all this Asian shamans away. Me thinking all this was about a presidential aspiration or money. She doesn't she promised the national stadium will be used for sports rather than concerts. Becky, hello, welcome. Okay, maybe it's her last ditch effort to be relevant. But what a miscalculation. So it was a power play. She never had that authority. Yeah, she never had that. So that is, I think, what the article actually established. She never had the authority to actually approve or even lead the meeting or be leading or lead the negotiation, and yet she did. So that's what's like, I think that is the crux of the problem. Why were you leading the meeting that you're not even supposed to be leading? And then the second thing is that I think instead of trying to do something about it, I think the second problem is that she did not anticipate the backlash. And so when she went into the media and said, "Oh no, this is not going to happen," she thought it was just like, everyone's going to think that I'm an authority. And, she didn't expect the backlash, I think. Okay, so we're gonna go into some of my observations that I think, because I think this entire event sort of reflects something bigger, not just about BTS but also armies. Um, that people politicians, authorities, bureaucrats need to start really thinking about and looking into. Okay, so one is that um, BTS has actually become a political variable. They themselves, BTS themselves, have never actually directly involved themselves in politics. In fact, I think they have largely avoided it. They have, for their own country, of course, they serve their own country. So whenever they are called to be an ambassador of this, ambassador of that, represent this, represent that, they'd always be there. I think that much is clear. But they've never, um, they've never themselves endorsed any politician, endorsed any kind of ideology. But I think just because of the sheer popularity that they have and the sheer influence they have on their fandom, they've become a political variable. And BTS has become one of the very few, and I mean very, maybe a handful of living artists in the world whose concerts can become matters of national politics rather than just entertainment. You can probably count, like, I don't know, maybe Taylor Swift in that. Other than that, and Taylor Swift, other than them and Taylor Swift, I don't know who else. Like global, and I'm talking about global. So very few, if not the only. Um, and it isn't their doing. It isn't their doing. Meaning they aren't the ones that are involving themselves in politics. It has become a result of their popularity. Okay. Um, Now, as a proof, in a span of a week, cabinet ministers were forced to explain themselves to the public. Multiple political parties commented on the issue. Lawmakers requested official explanation because of the because of the concert. Lawmakers requested official explanations. Municipalities competed to host the concerts. Government agencies contradicted one another, and they're racing to the media to get their piece out. Investigative journalists began looking into internal government negotiations, and polling numbers of a minister were actually suddenly being discussed alongside BTS. It's remarkable. It's beyond impressive. It's actually remarkable. All in a span of 1 week. So, all because someone said their concert was going to be canceled. This is not the first time a concert is going to be canceled in any kind of venue and in any city in the history of concerts. But this is the first time it's actually creating this much of a chaos. Um, so for them to be able to push these people, from lawmakers to cabinet ministers to municipal officials to different private businesses to investigative journalists, for them to be tapped and be forced to join this s- chaos, I think it's beyond remarkable. Okay, to be fair, someone said, to be fair, Mr. To be fair, there is a whole world of people who do not know about BTS. We as armies cannot assume everyone else does. Yeah, yes, absolutely. The negotiator didn't give her the extra money for the elevator stadium, and she thought she had the upper hand and didn't anticipate army power. So the story isn't really about can BTS perform anymore. I think that's one of the a minor, not a minor, but I think it's one of the many big issues. But there are other bigger issues that are popping up because of BTS. And it isn't about can BTS perform, it's now more about how did the Chilean government handle this? How did they fail this monumentally? How did they mismanage all of these things? How can they, supposed to be experienced people who had authority and intelligence, mismanage such a supposedly small issue? Because whenever someone would actually say it's just a concert, everyone would respond, well, why can't you handle it well? If it is a minor thing, why can't you handle it well? And the answer is because it is not just a concert, it's bigger than that. This concert has actually exposed so many things about how the government actually works, or specifically how the Chilean government actually works. Okay, next is that we've dramatically and underestimated the political power of BTS because no one even thought about it. As I've said, they have largely detached themselves for it. And I think that is intentional on their part to not be political. Um, but because of their popularity, because of the kind of influence they exercise over their own people, their own fandom, I think it just became inevitable for them to have that kind of political power. They never claimed to do more than music. They've always said that they are musicians and they are artists. They've never gotten themselves into anything political. They've gotten themselves in a lot of social things, sure, from Love Yourself to the different donations that they do for their causes, but they've never been political. And yet, even without a word from them, they are mobilizing hundreds of thousands of people. And I know people are going to say you're exaggerating. Those that march, that does not amount to hundreds of thousands. Yes, that is true. Let's just assume there are tens of thousands of armies in Chile. But then you have hundreds of thousands outside of Chile that like us that are actually participating in the conversation. So they are mobilizing hundreds of thousands of people. And they are not even making any kind of comment about the politics of any country, not even their own country. Okay. Um, Next, we've also, I think, dramatically underestimated the political power of the fandom and of X. Because a lot of the news, a lot of the mobilization actually happened through X. Just a little bit of a tidbit. In the Philippines, the very first peaceful revolution that overthrew an actual government, like we overthrew the president of the country at that time, Ferdinand Marcos, he was a dictator for more than 25 years. That happened through radio. So, and it was people power. So it was just street protest. This is history, not politics. So it was street protest, and the because it's a Catholic country, the Philippines is a Catholic country. When the then chief of armed forces, I think chief of armed forces, yeah, Ferdinand Ramos, who eventually became a president, when he was calling on to the people to try and protect them, so they were in a military base, they were starting the coup, and they were calling on to the people to protect them. There were several thousands of people there, but they needed more. So they called the Archbishop of Manila. So it's the highest ranking priest in Manila, the capital of the country. And he went to the radio. He went to speak in a radio station and called people and called everybody to protect the him and the other soldiers there as they start the coup. And so the medium was actually radio. And then another people power happened. So number two, same country, but different leader. So another president was overthrown, and that was Facebook. The mobilization happened through Facebook. So it's always some sort of mass media that actually make it possible for people to gather together and do some sort of like force a specific change or do some sort of rebellion or protest. I think that's a better word. Now it is a little bit of Facebook but more of Twitter. So it's just interesting how you can actually see the movement of the media, the medium that's being used for this kind of protest. Okay. So we have dramatically underestimated the political power of the fandom and X. So now the armies are actually organizing protests. They are contacting officials, creating international media attention, monitoring legal documents, translating government statements, and influencing the news cycle. So you have a group of armies on Chile that's actually um, translating all of this media articles, communicating it to armies outside of Chile. And it's armies outside of Chile that's creating a bigger noise in the international media. And then they're feeding it back into Chile. So it's all like a cycle. And they're using, to a little degree, TikTok, but to a larger degree, X and Facebook. Okay. The printing press and the American Revolution. Yeah. So this, what armies are actually doing in Chile is actually closer to a civic movement than a traditional fan club. So the internet has transformed fandoms from an audience to an actual political stakeholder. So you have, like, if you pull back and really study what has been happening, I don't know if you know what happened to what's this other country? Was it Nepal who overthrew their government, and they also organized themselves on Twitter and on TikTok, um, and also on YouTube. So for this other, and this is history again, not politics, but that's what happened. It's more a study on media, actually. It started by exposing, allegedly, this, not allegedly, they started exposing what they call Nepo babies. And so these are children, because the country was in poverty. It is in poverty today. And it was younger people who started it is in Nepal. Okay, Nepal. So they started exposing the children of the politicians who are actually living in luxury. And so younger people in that country started questioning by creating videos on YouTube Shorts, TikTok, IG Reels. They creating IG Reels and started questioning, why are your children living in luxury while we are all in poverty? And so they started, okay, we're going to do a protest. And that's how they organize themselves. TikTok, but more X when it comes to organization. So you need, like, I think it's worth a look. It's worth looking into how the media is actually being used. It's not the media that's causing the revolution as or the protests, but it's the media that's being used to make that possible, because that's how they organized. First it was radio, and then now it is social media, the internet. Okay. Next is going to be the metaverse. Okay. Okay. So next is that governments are beginning to discover that concerts are public policy. It used to be just entertainment, but BTS has proven that their concert is not just tourism, it's not just entertainment, it's not just culture. It's an entire ecosystem. And that involves transportation, policing, emergency services, stadium scheduling, diplomatic images, local economy, consumer protection, government accountability. One of the major issues in Busan, as you know, was transportation, because armies got stuck in on the side of the street because there was no way for them to get back to wherever they should go back to. They couldn't go back to their hotels. I think I've mentioned that many armies actually decided to stay outside of Busan just as so they could have a hotel, because everything was sold out. Even if they were willing to pay the money, everything was just sold out. That if they stayed in Busan, they would still end up traveling like more than an hour and a half. And if you translate that into a late night travel, then it's going to be longer. So many of them actually resorted to staying in Daegu, which is about an hour if you take the bullet train. So they decided to stay outside of Busan, but then because there was no transportation, they were all stuck. So now they're realizing that's a problem, and then just the sheer amount of people walking into the sidewalk, and it's their right. It's not like you can ask them to not walk and use the sidewalk. So that in itself is a problem. Then you need police. And then if you have the police, because you have that volume of armies, you need emergency, you need crowd control. And then now for Chile, the biggest problem that they have, not the biggest, but one of the biggest issues that they are raising is that it's actually tarnishing the image of Chile, because they're appearing to be unreliable when it comes to scheduling concerts. Who's going to book there if they can't count on you? If you're the kind of country that would allow the tickets to be sold and then cancel it after, obviously, it's not reliable. So that's one of the problems that they're raising. Okay, next. I'm a fan. You're a Chilean fandom. Okay, I'm gonna try and breeze through this because we're already over an hour. There appears to be a political struggle happening, and BTS became the catalyst, not necessarily the cause. I think that whatever political thing is happening right there, it's not that wasn't because of BTS. That has always been there. I think whatever political tension they have, all of this issues, and that has always been there even before BTS. It's just that because of BTS, a lot of it surfaced. So media are reporting internal disagreements. The clinic alleges tensions between the ministry and IND. Opposition parties have entered the discussion. Government credibility is now part of the story. Because if you're the opposition, one of the things that they are, of course, looking into is how they can utilize this to question the credibility of the sitting government. And they're doing that. And then the past of this woman Duko is also being talked about because apparently she had really a lot of controversies under her belt, that it is actually impressive that she was appointed as the Ministry of Sports. Have they even thought about impact or reach of BTS? Obviously not. Strong points there, Ferlane. It weakens the global perspective of Chile as a country. I think the fans that say BTS is straying away from their old days, but from what happened in Chile, it shows that they still motivate armies to stand up for what's right, even without saying a word. I think those people that are saying that BTS is actually straying away from their old days, I'm assuming that they mean that BTS does not have the same influence as they used to. I think those are people who haven't really realized the kind of influence BTS has. Like they only know it based on what their own fandoms would feed them. So they actually don't know the extent of the influence of BTS. So BTS did not create this political tension or this conflict that's happening in Chile. Absolutely not. I think it just they helped expose it to non-political people. That's what they did. But they did not start this. Um Big Hit also now has a bigger leverage very few entertainment companies possess. And you have to notice what happened. The promoter did not need to convince only consumers. The government eventually had to explain themselves. So it was actually this is and when I say Big Hit it was also BTS. They have such big political leverage now. Not I'm not saying that they're going to be using it. It's just again because of the popularity and the success. It's just a given. Um, because if you notice what happened, the promoter they haven't said anything. Big Hit has not said anything about this entire issue, but then the government is actually the one that's stepping forward and trying to explain themselves. Okay, next. Um, BTS and Big Hit are not politically powerful by themselves. And when I say they're not politically powerful, I don't think they are at a level where they can sway a, an election for that matter, especially if it's a foreign election. I'm not saying that. Um and quite honestly, I don't think there's a single act who can actually do it. I thought Taylor Swift, but not. So I'm not saying that they have that power. I don't think they can go in front of their country or any country for that matter and say, hey, vote for this person, and everyone's just going to vote for that. I'm not overstating their influence or their power. But their economic, cultural, and reputational power has come to a level where it is causing a stir in the political arena in countries because the economic, cultural, and reputational cost of losing a BTS concert has become so enormous that governments now have incentives to find the solution. So again, I'm not stating their influence and their popularity. I do not think they can sway the election of Chile, not even the election of their own government. I don't think so. But they have become powerful, economically powerful enough to a point where they can make a government move just to make their concerts possible. Okay. Next is that this illustrates something Bang Shiyuk has talked about for years. He actually first talked about this in detail back in 2018, 2017, 2018. He started talking about this 2016 actually, but 2018 is when he did a presentation, a lecture in a university, which we will get into. Bang has actually repeatedly argued that music isn't simply recorded audio anymore. It's actually an ecosystem. And I think the failure of many governments or many people in general is that they fail to account for the ecosystem. So when they're looking at their businesses, when they're looking at their political programs or economic programs, they are failing to consider that there is a music ecosystem now that can actually help them achieve some of their goals or play to their disadvantage if they don't entertain it. Okay, next. Um, one proof of this, one proof of the ecosystem that Bang Shiyuk is talking about is what happens when BTS announces their tour. Airlines, hotels, restaurants, public transportations, tourism, city branding, media, politics, international diplomacy, local businesses, all of that actually come into play. As I've said, very few, if not the only, I wouldn't say the only, but there are very, very few, less than a handful of artists, living artists, have the same power as they do to influence an entire city, including its government. So it's not just one aspect. It's not just about traffic. It's not just about local restaurants. It's all of this coming being affected when BTS comes into a city. Okay. Next, the concert itself lasts 3 hours, but the ecosystem affects an entire country for months. So, yeah, I guess that's sort of justifiable to say, even in a country like the US, for example, when they announced their tour in North America, the preparation started and things actually started getting moved around so that they can accommodate the traffic and the business that BTS is going to bring into the States. And a perfect example of that would be Las Vegas. And now it's going to happen in California as well. Okay. Um, Next is that the conversation has shifted from can they sell tickets to can countries host BTS? It isn't much of a problem for more established countries that are more used to it, like the US, because there's a lot of touring artists here. So we're a little bit more equipped, and we've hosted other things outside of concerts. We've hosted Olympics, international events. So it's a little bit more set up. But for other countries who aren't as utilized as the US, then this is a question that's plaguing them. Can you actually host BTS? I think one of this when BTS went to I just saw it, like I was about to talk about this. So when BTS actually went to Saudi Arabia, that was a big test to the country. It was I know not a lot of people appreciated what happened, but it was monumental because it's primarily a Muslim country, but the leaders of the organizers, the venue, they're all handled, of course, handled by men, but majority of the fans were women, and so there's a big question of how are they going to be treated. And remember, this is BTS, so the fans had to be treated well, and they were treated like no other. They were treated like queens. The VIP section had like there was like a VIP event for everybody who came there. So there's always this element of a country being tested when BTS comes in. Like everything is being looked at. Like, how are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? And one of the early um uh case study was actually Saudi Arabia because everyone realized, okay, this is what's going to happen if a bunch of women come together to watch a concert. This is how they're going to be treated. Okay, next. Um, 10 years ago, the challenge was convincing promoters that BTS could fill arenas. Today, the question is almost the opposite. Can a country's infrastructure, its stadiums, government agencies, sports calendar, transportation, and bureaucracy actually accommodate BTS? That's the big question now. So BTS is not the one who needs to prove something. It's actually the host city or the host country. And I think I think this is the biggest takeaway. This is a huge lesson when it comes to soft power. Everyone keeps on talking about soft power. This is soft power in action. Government often spend hundreds of millions trying to attract tourism, and BTS creates demand almost automatically. All they need is to announce it, and everyone would understand, and everyone would come together to try and make it happen for them. Also, what's interesting in Chile's story um, shows the flip side, actually. If the government mishandle a BTS event, it also creates an international political story. So soft power doesn't only generate opportunity, it also raises the cost of mistake. So if you're not ready for the cultural power of BTS, then don't even think of hosting them. I think that's the lesson. If you're going to invite them to come to your country, you have to be prepared because this is soft power in action. So a lot of people would think of um, a a queen, maybe I don't know, um, such a big an athlete, maybe a team. That's what they envision when they think of big rallies, big festivals. But now it's BTS. So that I think that this is a huge lesson for everybody that's going to and this is bigger than BTS. It's become bigger than BTS. If when they as this thing actually progresses, I don't think there's going to be okay, let me start it this way. I don't think there's any other group that will have the power that BTS has. They're not just once in a generation, they actually just come once. And you can say that for the Beatles, Elvis Presley, Whitney Houston. These people are Michael Jackson, they come once. No one else will be the Beatles. No one else will be Michael Jackson. No one else will be Whitney. No one else will be Elvis. No one else will be BTS. But I think in the future, there's going to be some sort of a change in how artists will become influencers culturally. And and so this is a sneak peek of what of the power that they will hold in the future. So countries, officials, bureaucrats, businesses will have to redesign how they do things in order to accommodate this kind of soft power. Okay, did I make sense? Do you have questions before we move on to the next topic? I can read a little, I can speak Arabic. Okay, do you have questions about that before I move on to the next? If the government will be aware of, if they don't let BTS perform in Chile, there will be a massive protest against the government. Mark my word. I don't care what country, army is army. True. Anyway, I don't speak Farsi. I have no doubt that the concert themselves will not be a problem. I don't know that much will be mobilized elsewhere in the city. Okay, yes, let's go. Happy Army Day. Yes, that made sense. Okay, next, let's talk about this article. So, as you know, I think some of you have already read the article. So there was a prosecutor who actually talked about the case of Bang Chiyok. He sort of gave an update on the case of Bang Chiyok. Um, Now, before I proceed, I just want to make a disclaimer that I am not a lawyer. This is not a legal advice. And all I have is a cute dog who's not on my lap anymore. He's outside my room. So always treat this as a part of your initial research. This is not a legal advice. If you need to make any kind of legal decision, do not solely base this on this. This is just a jump off point. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm not a lawyer. Not a this is not a legal advice, and that is them back on my lap. Okay. So prosecutors reportedly found insufficient evidence to support fraud charges against Hybe's chairman, Bang Shiyuk, and suggested police consider different charges. As you know, they already rejected the warrant of arrest twice, the request for warrant of arrest twice. And they said it's because there really is insufficient evidence to support the fraud charges that they want to put forward. Um, Now they've already rejected the arrest warrant twice for the same reason. But the prosecutors themselves the prosecutors themselves said that the evidence collected by police was not sufficient to prosecute Bang on charges of fraudulent unfair trading under the Markets Act. So they kinda, sorta made a conclusion that based on your 5 days of questioning, 3 raids in the guy's home and office, and all of your months and months of investigation, it's not going to stand. That's what they kind of said. Okay. That's what they told the police. It's not going to stand. It has no legs. Drop it. Okay. That is me making it mainstream. That's not how they said it. Okay. It's like, you've got no case. Give it up. All right. So they said, why don't you do ordinary fraud? They suggested to the police, why don't you do ordinary fraud? To establish fraudulent unfair trading under South Korea's capital market, prosecutors must prove that the defendant distorted the capital market system in a way that undermined market order. Okay, so they're saying that the whatever he caused, let's just assume this is how it's translated in common speak. Whatever he caused, let's just assume that he actually made some stir, or like he disturbed someone's money or investment or whatever. Let's assume that. Okay, let's assume that. Let's just give it to you and say, okay, because of him, um someone wasn't able to maximize their yield. Okay, let's just assume that. That is still not enough to be convicted of fraudulent trading under the South Korea's Capital Markets Act. Because in South Korea's Capital Market Act, for you to be convicted of fraudulent trading, you need to distort the capital market system. So it's not just one or two or several investors that need to be affected. The entire system has to be disturbed. So even if you're able to prove that there are 50 people who weren't able to maximize their yield because of what he said, that still does not qualify as disturbing the capital market system. It's not going to stand. Whatever you have based on your evidence, even if we exaggerate it, it's not enough to convict him of the crime you are accusing him of. So we go back to the case of, let's say, Min Hee-jin. The judge said she did something wrong, but the charge that you're putting forward is not enough. It does not equate to the crime that she committed. The same thing is true here. They're saying that, yeah, you may be able to prove that he did something wrong, but your charge does not match what he did. And so, yes, it is a high bar. I was actually pretty shocked. And so they're saying, why don't you bring down your charges? Maybe you're going to go somewhere if you bring down your charges. So they're saying, why don't you charge him for ordinary fraud? That's their suggestion. Okay. Now, now comes the other problem. A central issue is whether Bang allegedly used special purposes companies, SPCs, to purchase shares from existing investors in order to circumvent lockup restrictions, which normally prevent major shareholders from selling stocks for a certain period after an initial public offering. So, what they're saying is that he built a company, an SPC, special purpose company, in order to buy the shares of existing shareholders. So he put it in that special purpose company so that he can persuade the shareholders to sell their shares, and then he'll buy it and put into an SPC. The problem is that SPC in and of itself is not bad. Like, it's a common practice in South Korea. So just because someone created an SPC, you cannot automatically say, well, he created an SPC, he did something wrong. That's not how it works. A lot of people could do an SPC. Okay. So there's nothing illegal about it. So now the investigators are looking at whether Bang, because they have nothing else to go with, They're looking into whether Bang used investment vehicles like SPCs to acquire shares from earlier investors before Hybe went public, then later shared in the profit after the IPO. So that's their central argument right now. That's what they're trying to focus on. Okay. Um, so there is for this to work, for the SPC to work, they actually need to prove that someone violated the lockup restrictions. So when a company goes public or they go through an IPO, major shareholders cannot immediately sell all of their shares. They are required to hold on to that for a period of time. So if you have 1 million shares of a company, you're actually not allowed to sell it once it goes public for at least 6 months in South Korea. I don't know how long here, 3 months, I think, in the US. Because imagine if there are 10 shareholders, big shareholders who sold their shares, it's going to tank the company. And if they tank the company big enough, then they might actually affect the entire market. Of course, the market does not want that. So they're putting all of those measures to make sure that these people wouldn't do something like that. Okay. So now there is a lockup restrictions. Now, what they found out is that everyone followed the lockup restrictions. Those who cannot sell actually didn't sell. So when Hype debuted strongly in October 2020, the stock surged from on the first day and then declined significantly over the following days and weeks. And that is normal. That usually happens when a company goes public. Because if you're an investor, especially if you're a day trader, if you're an investor, you would buy shares of a company that you know will go up. And then once it goes like 5%, 10% up, especially if you have a significant share, you're just going to sell. And so that's actually what's happening here. It's what happened. They debuted, but because a lot of the new investors who bought on the first day, when they realized, okay, I think it reached its limit, they started selling and selling and selling until it went down. But no one from previous companies, from those that had lockup, actually sold their shares. So they just followed the law, is what they found out. Okay, next. Part of the decline was attributed to profit taking by investors whose shares were not locked up or who were otherwise able to sell. So that they were the reasons they were the reason the stocks eventually went down. But no one who had to hold on to their share actually let go. So the report states that the prosecutors had already raised this investigative direction when police launched the compulsory investigative measures back in April 2025. So more than a year ago, the prosecutors already warned the police and said, I don't think you have any legs to stand on. So why don't you shift direction? And the police simply resisted. So they did not follow the recommendation of the prosecutors. So prosecutors are saying, maybe if they followed ordinary fraud, which was their recommendation, maybe we're going somewhere now. But because they didn't, they keep on insisting to charge him for something higher that is not just there. Okay. That's right, is where the crime committed. Where are the victims? So now a Korean lawyer in the article, the article that I used to report this, a Korean, according to them, this publication is actually like law based. Okay. So a Korean lawyer said for fraudulent unfair trading, it is generally sufficient to prove there was deceptive conduct. So if they're going to lower the charges, it would be sufficient to say that there is deceptive combat. Sorry, I got that the other way around. If it is the current charge that they want to charge him, if they are able to prove that there is deceptive comeback, that would be enough. But for ordinary fraud, prosecutors must also establish a causal link showing that the existing investors sold their shares because of Bang Shiyuk's alleged false statements. So in other words, how do you prove that causation? You're going to have to get witnesses, right? How do you prove that they sold their shares and they lost because of what Bang Chiyuk said? You're going to have to get witnesses telling you, oh yeah, we sold because he told us that they weren't going to go public. And the problem is, someone already asked, there are no victims. So there is nobody to tap if they ever lower the charges. Okay. Now, there was another thing, another problem that they are raising, and that is that there was roughly 1 year gap between the alleged deception and the profits ultimately, when the profits ultimately was realized, which could make calculating damages difficult. So the farther you are from when the crime happened, alleged crime happened, the weaker your case becomes. Because then you're faced with a problem of how do we compute the losses or the damages? That's one thing to consider. Okay. Um, Now, if they change direction, the lawyer said if the police change direction now, the investigation would have to be substantially reorganized, making the case record more complicated. It could also weaken future attempts to obtain arrest warrant because they already called him 5 times for questioning, each lasting at least 10 hours or 11 hours. Or by average, it lasted like 11, 12 hours. And then they also raided his office and house, his home 3 times. And you're doing all of that focusing on a certain charge. So if you're going to charge him another way, what are you going to do? Are you going to ask him to come in again 5 more times and then raid his office and home again 3 more times? So you're doing something for a year and a half, all geared towards one end, and then you're going to change it a year and a half in. How long is this going to take? Another 18 months? Okay. Now, how common, and this I had to research on my own, how common is an investigation like this to last this long? So I consulted 2 law firms in Korea and 2 professional Korean journalists, and they said it is not unheard of. There have been investigations that lasted really, really long in South Korea. But this one is way longer than those. So they're saying it's not unheard of that a travel ban will be imposed, that you have this kind of a circus. It's not unheard of. It is South Korea after all. But this is admittedly way longer than any of those. Now, they gave in examples. They said that financial crime in South Korea routinely take a long time. 1 to 3 years is kind of like the average, because especially if it involves IPOs, accounting, laws, corporate governance, that's going to take a long time because they're investigating so many things. They review millions of financial records, reconstruct transactions, analyze emails and messages, interview dozens of witnesses, determine who knew what and when, and prove intent, which is often the hardest part. So it does take a long time now. And it all starts with the millions of dollars that they're talking about. Now, they've actually given some examples of other cases that lasted this long. Um, Wait, where is that? Okay. Okay, here. So a travel ban was actually imposed on Chung Mong-ko, which is the former CEO of Hyundai. So he was placed under a travel ban during a major embezzlement and breach of trust investigation back in 2006. The investigation, prosecution appeals, and eventual pardon stretched over several years. Okay, so re- take note of the wording. The investigation, prosecution, appeals, and eventual pardon, it stretched about 3 years. The investigation did not last a year and a half. The trial, the prosecution, the appeal, and then the eventual pardon lasted full 3 years. So Bang Shiyuk's case in the investigation phase is already 50% of what Chung Mung-ko experienced. Okay. And then you have Yoon Suk-yeol, which is the former president of South Korea. He was banned from leaving the country almost immediately after the martial law investigation began, before any kind of conviction. The case is still ongoing. Okay. And then but they're all saying that Bang's situation is somewhat unusual given the history of a very critical media, very critical people. Bang Shiyuk's case is still very, very unusual. He has been under a travel ban well over a year. Police have questioned him multiple times. Prosecutors have rejected arrest warrant, and prosecutors are reportedly conducting a parallel investigation. It's like, what's happening? The police and the prosecutors aren't on the same page. The investigation itself, not even the charges itself, they haven't even started the hearing. And then there's going to be an appeal. Whatever happens, there's going to be an appeal, if whatever. So that's going to stretch what, another 3 years? So in and of itself, what's happening with Bang Shiuk is already unusual. Okay. Um, Now, of all the things that they are investigating, the IPO, the private equity fund, um, the special purpose companies, alleged side agreements, statements made to multiple investors, what's not clear is whether each of the thing that they are investigating is a real case, or is this a situation of them just throwing everything on the wall to see which sticks. So it seems, at least for the law firm or the article, it seems like it's the latter. They're just throwing everything they can on the wall to see which one sticks. And so far, nothing is sticking. Okay. So the disagreement between the police and the prosecutor is highly unusual. Now, what the article seems to be hinting, it's not saying it directly, but what the article seems to be hinting is that this is bigger, because this is not just a battle between the law enforcement and Bang Shiyuk. It seems to be a battle between the prosecutors and the police, and Bang Shiyuk is in the middle of it. Like, these two are the ones that are actually battling it out, and he's just caught in the middle. So, okay. Um, so because of the limitation of my research, I cannot say it is unprecedented. So I can't say that for sure. But I haven't seen a single case when someone is under a travel ban for over a year, not nearly a year, but for over a year, while police and prosecutors appear to disagree over the legal theory. Arrest warrants have already been rejected twice, and the investigation is still ongoing. I have not, of all the cases that all of my friends have thrown or acquaintances have actually given me, there is not a single case that they've given me that can match the intensity and the length of this investigation and the complication of this investigation. And to think that the complication doesn't seem to emanate from the case itself, but from the process, from the people that are investigating, namely the police and the prosecutor's office. Okay. Do you have questions before I move on to the next topic? Justin Bieber has been confirmed tonight. Hmm. It could be anyone. I am thinking more government driven, but my detective skills are only so. Maybe they're thinking that whoever can topple Bang Shiyuk will be able to control BTS, small police with small minds. That is funny. They have nothing and just want him down. Oh man, another power play. I feel bad for Bang Shiyuk. He's stuck in Korea. It's just a witch hunt. I think they're in for a surprise. So it's already very telling that the CEO of Universal actually went to him. Although he was on tour, that is to be that, I mean, props to that. We need to acknowledge that. But for him to just say, "Okay, you can't leave Korea, I'm going to you." That's a huge thing. He can't go outside of Korea, so the world he can't go to the world, so the world is coming to him. Um This is crazy for an only 11-minute halftime show. Bieber is headlining with Madonna, Shakira, and BTS. The 11-minute show will also feature Afrobeats star Borno Boys and Gustavo Dudame. I heard that they're going to stretch it to 30 minutes. I don't know if that's true. Can he sue the police? If the question is, can he can. But that usually doesn't happen in South Korea because they're afraid of the backlash. Okay, they added JB to the final halftime show. It's only 11 to 13 minutes. I heard they're going to make it longer. Why Bieber? He can't dance. Maybe BTS is going to be taking care. Hmm? Can't he dance? That is interesting because obviously Shakira can dance. Hello, Madonna can dance. BTS can dance. So yeah, that's interesting how they're gonna play it. Can they 30 minutes? That's what I heard, that they're gonna stretch it to 30 minutes. Uh, let's see. That's what the official FIFA site says, 11 to 15 minutes total. Oh, okay. So maybe that's just fans talking. Well, yeah, that's going to be impressive. They're just going to be singing all together the entire time. um, who holds the second most shares of Hybe after Bang Shiyuk? If Bang Shiyuk is arrested and has to sell Hybe shares, what entity has the ability to buy his shares and become majority shareholder of Hybe? Even if he gets arrested or even if he goes to jail, he doesn't have to sell his shares. That's not a requirement. He can still hold it. I heard 11 minutes just rest yesterday. Okay, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is 11 minutes. I don't know how they're going to be stretching it. That would be interesting. He can't dance like BTS though. Okay, so he can dance a little. Okay. All right. So that would be interesting. As I've said, obviously Shakira can dance, Madonna can dance. So let's see what they are going to be doing. Okay. I'm going to try to finish this in 20 minutes. How's that? Can we do it? Um all right. So Billboard actually released their study on K-pop fandom in the US. And this is their July 2026 publication. So they released it July 2026, but it is a study that spans uh, 2025 and first quarter of 2026. So they said that this is the first time that they've done something this extensive, which is very interesting because a lot of the things that they said is happening. A lot of the things that are happening, they said are happening. Um, Bang Shiyuk actually sort of talked about it back in 2018 when he delivered a lecture about the future of K-pop. Okay, so one of the things that he said is that fans are no longer just consumers; they can actively grow artists. So back then, he was already saying that you have to stop looking at armies or fans for in general as mere consumers. They don't just consume your product. They can help you grow. So you need to start looking at them as co-marketers to a certain degree. If fans in the past were in the position of general consumers, it wouldn't be an overstatement to say that today's fans are facilitators who are able to actively help artists grow. And so he was actually very, very specific. He spent a considerable amount of time in in that talk, in that lecture, discussing how you need to respect fans more. You need to start looking at them like real people if you want to actually enjoy the power that they have. Okay. Now, so he said that in the past, fans mainly bought albums, attended concerts, and listened to music, period. That's what they do. Talk about their biases with their friends and stuff. But he said that today's fans, that was 2018. At least he was talking about armies at that time. They spread content, they organize fandoms, they introduce new listeners to the fandom or to the artist, they create fan art, they translate content, and they promote artists on social media. So a lot of it is not just consumption, a lot of it is also marketing. And he said that you need to really consider how you're going to not weaponize, but give your fandom, give the fans a way to actually do all of this. How are you going to make spreading content easier for them? How are you going to allow them to organize easier? How are you going to how are you going to help them introduce new artists to the fandom? The same way you're thinking about how your marketing team can do all of this, you need to think about how can the fandom do all of this, because all of this used to be the job of the marketing team, the promotions team, or the advertising team, however you want to call them. So when they make their business plans, they're always thinking, okay, so what are the things that we can do? What are the utilities and the products that we can do to help the marketing department? That's what they used to do. Now, in 2018, he's already saying you need to also think about what are the things that you can do to make it easier for the current fans to do all of this, to spread content, organize followers, introduce new listeners to the music, create fan art, translate content, promote artists on social media. Your plan has to consider all of that. So they are now a business entity in your plan. Okay. Now that is happening now. That's happening now. So an article was actually published in Forbes and several other newspapers, other media publications talking about how how labels in the US are actually now looking into how they can develop super fans. So they're essentially 8 years after, 7 years after, they're now realizing, he's right. We cannot just look at the fans of these people, the fans of the artists as fans. If we want longevity for the artists that we are spending on, we're gonna have to utilize the fans to become marketers themselves. So what can we do to make marketing for them easier? Um, Slater actually published an article talking about translators themselves. So they talked about people, fans, K-pop fans that are spending, a few minutes of their day to up to 10 hours a day translating things, translating videos of BTS, translating songs, explaining creative nuances, just as so fans from other countries will be able to enjoy them. And this is not just English translation. There are armies translating to Spanish, to Japanese, and to other languages. So there was a special article, and the article was actually pretty impressive. A lot of the journalist herself, the one who actually wrote the article and did the investigation, was shocked. She couldn't believe that there are armies who would voluntarily translate for no payment at all. Like, she couldn't wrap her head, if you read the article, she couldn't wrap her head around the fact that people are going to use their valuable skill to do this. One of the things that she kept talking about is that, why is Big Hit not employing these people? Why can't you just employ one or two for every language so that they can professionally translate the conversations, the songs, and the videos? So um, that plays into what Bang Shiyuk said. Make it easy for them to translate content. Now, you can go even deeper on this, because one of the many struggles of fans of other groups is if they do professional translation. For example, on YouTube, they do professional translation. Of course, they're going to re upload the content. Most likely, what's going to happen is that the company will flag that content. So either it will be blocked altogether or they cannot earn. So it's going to, if you're a fan who's actually willing to do this for free, it's going to be better if you're going to be paid, not necessarily by the company, but in one way or another. But if you're going to if you're going to block my videos, if you're going to turn down all the possibilities of me being able to earn, what incentive do I have? One of the biggest things that Big Hit actually did, especially in the early days, is that they would allow creators, those that are translating and explaining the nuances of the language and explaining the things, they would allow them to monetize, even if they would upload like the entire V Live. At that time, it was still V Live. Whenever BTS would go live, would live stream, like, you can upload the entire thing while you're explaining and translating them, and Big Hit will actually not block you. So that is one way, one of the utilities that they develop in order to allow fans to continue doing what they're doing, to spread a word, invite new fans. They arm them with utilities and resources so that they can continue doing with what they are doing without having to spend more. Okay. Next. Um, the two other researches from big research companies, Luminate and Deloitte, actually said that entertainment companies should keep fans engaged all year because fans themselves generate value. So we know that in the West, and this is a big problem, and Luminate actually highlighted this in their study. They said that the biggest problem in the West is that many artists are still oriented with a different culture. And I'm not saying that it is a wrong culture. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that there is a difference. Okay, the two cultures are different. In the West, the fans or artists are still used to releasing an album and then taking a rest for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and then coming out with another album, doing the press run, and then dipping. They're used to that. And that is primarily because that's the influence of the culture. It's very individualistic. The center of the culture is the individual, as opposed to the East. The center is the community. So even if you're a big star, the expectation is that you're thinking about how your action will affect the the community. So they're saying that you're going to have to actually make, Deloitte is saying you're going to have to make some structural, foundational, cultural changes if you want to catch up. Because you cannot starve your fans for 4 years and expect that they're going to still be there and be as devoted. You're going to have to keep them engaged one way or another. You release a single, you whatever, but you're going to have to keep them engaged. Okay, Luminate said that K-pop fans have has the highest percentage of listeners to become super fans. Okay. Um, K-pop productivity is a bit much though. It is, but I think, and this is one of the things that I will be discussing in my video for tomorrow for BTS. I think BTS has sort of designed a way on how they can keep their privacy. They can slow down with work and still manage to keep fans engaged all throughout the year. So they're not pumping content the same way they used to. I don't know if you've I'm sure that many of you have actually watched their documentaries, but in one of those documentaries, I can still remember the scene. I can't pinpoint which documentary it was, but I believe they were in Paris. They were there. I think they were in Paris. They were having dinner, and then I even remember Jimin asking like what day it is. Like I woke up and I'm not even sure where we were, what day it is, and whatever. Because even in their rest days, they would work. They had so many schedules that they practically didn't have a rest day. And they're saying that like they've lost track of time. Like one day is the same as the other. But now they've managed to step back from all of that. Well, they are, popular enough to demand all of those things. So they can now they've slowed down considerably. They're very picky on their commitments. They are saying that they're able to do pickleball, they're able to explore the country, go around even while in the middle of a tour. And yet, we still have daily content. We're still able to consume things. And that is because they've been able to design how they can produce content for armies without having to work every day. Okay. Next. I'm just gonna stop at two, 2 hours and then continue it the next day. The next time. Okay. So next is the relationship between artist and fan is becoming collaborative. So he's saying that this was way before remixes became a thing, like an official thing in streaming. But he's already saying that artist success is increasingly built with fans rather than simply for fans. So fans have become a part of the ecosystem that drives an artist's career rather than passive observers. He was saying then at that time. So he's saying that you're gonna have to allow fans to collaborate with your artist. You need to allow them to collaborate. Now at that time, because wayang yonwa or the most beautiful moment in life, they would allow fans to collaborate in terms of allowing fans to decode the clues. They would allow fans to extend the narrative using their own narrative. Edits, as I've said, they would allow fans to use edits and not block those and not demonetize them, not claim them. So, and then they would allow fans to have conversations. They gathered fans so that fans themselves can, all of those good things. But now, but he's also saying, like, in the future, in that lecture, he actually said that in the future, you're going to have to allow fans to also co create music with the artist one way or another. Not just music, but art and other things. And 6 years after that, well, 8 years after that talk, we now know that Spotify and Universal actually had a deal allowing fans to do remixes of the songs. And now Tidal is doing it. YouTube is about to do it. So all of these streaming platforms that are centered on music, they're starting to allow fans to collaborate officially with the song of their favorite groups or favorite acts. So whatever he said in 2018 is now proving to be true. By the way, I don't know if you remember this, especially for those the newer armies. After he delivered this lecture, a lot of people actually mocked him for it, saying that he is crazy for thinking all of these things. So look at where we are right now. Okay. And he said that building a fan community is more valuable than chasing the general public. Okay. So he said, do the focus on the super fans first. Don't just chase the general public. Make sure that when you get new fans, try to convert them into super fans. The goal isn't simply to produce hit songs, it is to cultivate a community of people who will support the artist over the long term. Okay. So now he has been proven to be true, to be correct. Okay. I'll get into that in a bit because this is connected to the next point. He said that technology should deepen the relationship between artists and fans. And he wasn't just talking about a fan site. He was just not talking about that because they already had Daum at that time, the fan base. He was also talking about really developing new technologies that would allow the fans to connect. And that is happening now, not just with Weverse. Weverse is a huge product of it, but also games, different experiences like BTS, the city. Um, you have to include this in your book. Bank PD was trying to tell the industry the future, and now they have to catch up. Yes, it is included in my book. Okay. Okay. So let's expound on this a little bit. So we now know that Weverse is a huge influence. After Weverse, there's so many other superfan platform that actually came into being. And Universal is actually buying a lot of it. Sony, Warner, Columbia, they are all buying their own superfan platforms. And not just a platform where the artist can release their statements or whatever, but just other activities that they can actually do in the platform. So we all know, we're all familiar with Weverse. Now, there are other platforms that are specializing in specific things. For example, Station Head specializes in streaming, getting people together so that they can all listen to the same music together. And then there are others like, okay, so what I'm talking about. Um, Now this is happening now. So this two things that he mentioned, building a fan community is more valuable than chasing the general public, and technology should deepen the relationship between fans and artists, is now coming into fruition. He's saying essentially what is happening is that they're utilizing technology to enable the connection now, and not just in a way where the artist will release their statement or their newest the news about them, but also to allow fans to come together even when they're not there, and also for them to do other activities for their fans. So, okay, we're going to be discussing that a little bit more in the next live stream, but we're already about to approach 2 hours. So before we go into the 2 hours, do you have questions? The boys are now able to enjoy and Namjoon to be a- now able to enjoy and Namjoon a little bit. Correct. Plus fans support each other's enthusiasm. Yes. So um in the next live stream, I'm going to show you the actual lecture that he did, so that you know the things that he's talking about. Of course, it is in Korean, so so at least you can see like the portions of that lecture, and also some of the reactions, because some of the predictions and some of the things, actually those were not predictions. The everything that he talked and discussed in the lecture actually became the foundation of the business strategy of Hybe, and I will discuss that again in the next session. But so it's not really like a prediction, but him saying like this is where the direction is going, this is where we're headed, and this is where what we are going to be pursuing. And he was suggesting that others do the same because he believed that if it is a complete ecosystem, if they are not existing in a vacuum, so he's saying that sure, it would be great if we will be the leader, but if we're the only one in this market, in this industry, it won't be good either for us because we're existing in isolation. It would be better if it is symbiotic, meaning if there are others that are actually doing it, it would be easier for him and easier for everybody else. So I guess you can look at it like if only one segment of the community is rich and everyone else is poor, the economy isn't going to be good because then you're just concentrating everything on a few as opposed to having everybody with means to buy things and all. Then it's easier for the economy to grow. You can apply that same principle with him wanting all the other agencies, management companies in Korea and outside of Korea to get into this because he knows if everyone is progressing, it'll be easier for him as well. Okay, so are all the hype groups fandom acting like armies? There, um, there are fandoms that are similar. I would say I can argue that MOA's engines are kinda moving the same direction. It is always easier for the male fandoms to generate that kind of action and loyalty, I guess. The fandom of Eyelit is starting to get there. Cordis fandom is starting to get there. So the answer to your question is I don't think you can ever match armies. I think just like BTS, armies is once in a generation. Actually, just once, period. So just like BTS, the fandom is also very, very rare. But there are some that are kinda going towards that direction. Um, there's just some differences, like, and it's like it's foundational and structural. Like, for example, I'm watching Cordis, and one of the things that they're very like Cordis, they love each other. They love each other as a group, and they're very, very new. They're a year old, um, turning a year in August. But there's something in the relationship that's still missing. I'm not saying that they should exactly be like BTS, but there has to exist some sort of a dynamic has to exist for you to generate that loyalty. They'll get there, but not yet. And then this and the engine thing, the Enhypen thing happened with one member leaving. So you're gonna have to reconstruct the fandom again, right? Because from 7 to 6, you're gonna have to reconstruct the culture a little bit again. Because you chipped away one member. So of course there's going to be a little bit of a shakeup. So to answer your question, some similarities, but I don't think you can exactly copy armies. Did you see Cordis's light stick? It's very unique. It's a stick. When I saw Cordis's light stick, well, it's a stick. I'm a huge fan of my James is my bias. Everyone knows here. My bias is James in Cordis. He's my bias. Um and Kono, just because he's the maknae and he's the baby of the group. So and he's a very nice maknae. It looks like a candle. Engines are very young. They're very well. BTS army started very young. I think I don't think it would be reasonable to expect another army to come, like another fandom like this to come. But there has to be some sort of that version. A fandom will follow the artist, and army BTS is once it's a generational artist. It's but not just a generation. As I've said, they come once. Period. It doesn't. They don't come once in a generation. They come once. So so then that the fandom that they have will also come once. So this like engines, course, they will have to create their own culture. Army has grown with BTS. I like Martin. I will start creating more content with about Cordis. Um, but yeah, if you observe them, it's like a very, very different dynamic. It's a very relaxed group, by the way. They're very chill. So they don't have the and I know maybe it's because of the times, but they don't have the chaos that BTS used to have when they were younger. I'm not saying that they should. I'm not saying that they should. I'm just saying that there is a difference in like the tone of the group. I love Martin. He's adorable. He's the perfect leader for Cordis. Armies are armies because of BTS history too. Okay. So I will continue all of this in the next live stream. Sorry, I talked too much again. I will try to control. My plan next time is that, and this just came into my head while I was discussing because I was taking too long discussing other things, is that next time I'm actually going to do time codes, like from 4 to 4:45. This is what we're going to be discussing. Let's see if I can actually but that is my plan. So when I post the topics I'm going to describe, I will do the timestamp and see if I can actually, at least there is some pressure to stick to the time, so I can discuss everything and finish everything. Okay. Thank you very much. Bye.